audio when you're not speaking, as well as please state your name prior to making a comment or a motion or a second for an action item, and I thank you. I'll ask that each commissioner please respond with a here when I call your name. Commissioner Doan.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Duggan.
Present. Oh, I mean here.
It's okay. We can allow a little bit of difference. Commissioner Schmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Sanders.
Here.
And Commissioner Bagnall, me, I am here as well. So we will move swiftly into reports by the CEO and management staff.
Thank you, President Bagnall, commissioners. I'm going to pull up my screen here. All right, why does it, every time I think, there we go. All right. Let's see here if I can get this in presentation mode. Everybody, can you see that?
Yeah.
We can. It's just messing with you, Tom.
I know. I need more of that, so. All right. Portland Cryptosporidium results for the month of October 2020. The Portland Water Bureau reported 1 Cryptosporidium oocyst detection in water samples collected from the Bull Run headworks on October 18th. This far in November, there have been 4 Cryptosporidium oocyst detections. The Oregon Health Authority has determined that the public does not need to take additional protections at this time. Portland Water Bureau will continue increased sampling 4 times per week until there are at least 3 weeks without any detections. Complete results of Portland's Cryptosporidium monitoring are posted on the Water Bureau's website. COVID-19 response. Due to the increase in COVID-19 cases that we've all seen, Governor Brown's 2-week pause directive and the Oregon Safety and Health Administration's COVID-19 final temporary rules, TVWD leaders are reviewing our existing exposure control plan and reminding staff of the importance of following preventative measures. I will add to this that we now we now require that masks will be worn unless you're alone in a closed office with 4 walls and a door. Prior to this recent order, people working in cubicles weren't required to, as long as they were 6 feet apart. These new rules are going to require that masks be worn in cubicles, and our field staff will be required to wear them outdoors from now on. So this is an evolving thing, and we'll be monitoring it closely and see what else we need to do to comply. Continued with the COVID response, the CARES Utility Assistance Program has achieved some momentum, with Community Action committed to $121,000 and $284.03 in pledges on behalf of about 200 customers. The final outreach push included door hangers and a postcard mailer to the customers with outstanding balances. We really want to thanks again to the financial response team and members from our customer service, field service, and IT folks, along with finance staff. They've done a really outstanding job to reach out to these customers. And just in case you're curious, there's about 1,572 delinquent accounts currently. That's held steady now for quite a few months in that neighborhood, and those accounts in arrears amount to just over $600,000. So we still have quite a bit to do to work with these folks to get people current. So with that, unless there's questions for me, I'm going to turn this over to Pete Boone and he's our water operations division manager, to present the safety minute and the department report this evening. And I will say his presentation is way more exciting than mine, so it might even rival Dave Kraska's WWSS. So it's exciting stuff. And Pete, take it away.
All right, thanks, Tom. Hopefully everyone
Well,
can see my...
that is really good to hear, because I reviewed it in advance and I thought, Pete, that you did a masterful job of being succinct. So, so I'm sure that you're just gonna, the narrative is gonna bring this to life.
Boy, I hope so. Yeah, the expectations are high here. Can someone just quickly confirm that you can see my screen in the safety moment slide?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
We
Okay.
see you. It is a wonderful picture.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about the dangers of chimney fires. I happen to enjoy a good wood stove fire and the heat that puts off, especially this time of year. But we do have to do that safely. In the United States, every year, there's more than 25,000 chimney fires, and they cause over $125 million in property damage. So it's certainly something that we want to avoid. And the best way that you can avoid these and prevent these is by minimizing creosote buildup in your chimney. So creosote happens when there's incomplete burning. So either the temperature is too low or the fuel is moist and can't completely burn, so the byproducts of that can collect in your chimney in the form of creosote. So you can prevent that by burning hot fires, using dry wood, keeping good airflow through your stove. But also you need to clean your chimney annually to remove any creosote that does build up. So we recommend that be done by a professional, but some folks are capable of doing that themselves. And if you can safely get on your roof and do that, it's just important that you not only remove the creosote, but look for birds and other critters that might have moved into your chimney before you have that first fire of the year. If you do have a chimney fire, it's really important to call 911. They'll come out. Not only will they put the fire out in the chimney, but they'll check for extension and make sure that didn't get into your attic or some other part of your house through the chimney wall itself. So just a good reminder as we head into wood stove season here.
Thank you, Pete. So we're going to move swiftly from there, I guess, right straight into the department report. And again, Pete, our Water Operations Division Manager.
I'm happy to do it. Thank you, President Bagnall and Commissioners. So this evening, we're going to talk about the anatomy of a leak response. Every week, well, some weeks we skip them, but typically you'll hear us report out about a main break that operators responded to and fixed. But there's a whole lot more to those stories that we typically don't report on. We just say, we went to this location, we fixed a leak. Maybe some customers had service interrupted for a short amount of time. But I'm going to walk you through the process that goes into responding to these leaks and all the different TVWD staff that are involved in making that successful. But first of all, let's just talk about water mains and how they break. Generally, the fall and winter, the period of time that we're starting into right now, is our leak season. We have more leaks that occur this time of year than we do in the summertime when things are dry. And there's a couple reasons for that. So one is the soil moisture is obviously changing as we get a lot of rain. Temperatures are decreasing, both the water and the soil. The temperature goes down, and that can cause the ground to shift. But that impacts our pipes in different ways. Most of the district pipes are either ductile iron or cast iron, so a metal material, but they do behave differently. The ductile is susceptible to corrosion, and we've seen a lot of instances of that. Unfortunately, you've heard a lot about it. That process just breaks down the pipe wall, eats a hole, and eventually causes a leak. The cast iron can be susceptible to corrosion, but really the way that it typically fails is just through cracking. So it's a brittle material, and when that ground starts to shift, it can put the pipe in a bind and cause it to break.
Excuse me, hasn't anybody considered titanium?
You know, they probably have in other industries, maybe the nuclear reactors and different things, but yeah. You know, and there are different types of pipe, right? So there's plastics and there's concrete and steel, and we have a little bit of each of those. But
Yeah.
you know, there really is no perfect material, right? They all have their pros and cons.
Yeah.
So this couple of graphs here, and they illustrate really what I was talking about. So when we talk about when do leaks occur, the graph on the left is 5 years of data, and it's every main break that we've had from 2016 through most of 2020, and it's categorized by failure type. So you can see the height of those bars is just the number of leaks each of those months over that 5-year period. But the red portion of the bar is the shear breaks, and that's what affects our cast iron mostly. The blue segment is corrosion, and you can see that rate holds steady throughout the year. So the corrosion leaks can happen anytime. The shear breaks really tend to happen in the December and January timeframe. And then there's some other causes. They get hit by equipment, and they leak in other ways. But really, the bulk of those events happen, and it's 35% is the number, happen in the months of December and January. So it's right around the corner, and we know it's coming. And just by order of magnitude, the number of breaks in each of those years, you can see that graph on the right-hand side. So it fluctuates a little bit, you know, from 50 up to 65. 2020 might look like we're in great shape, but again, we're coming around the corner to December. We expect to have some leaks in there, and plus it's 2020, so you really don't know what's going to happen on any one of these days. Most of our leaks get reported by our customers. So folks that are out in the community, you know, maybe they're on their street taking a walk and they see water bubbling up to the surface, and they'll call us up and say, hey, we see water. Sometimes they call 911, and there's really no need to do that because 911, while they may respond, they're just going to call us too. So give us a call. You can reach us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by calling our main number at 503-848-3000, and we'll send somebody out there day or night, and they're going to take a look at that. Now, in a case like this, that's a pretty easy diagnosis. That's a main break. It's a bright sunny day, there's no rain, and you've got a major flood going on. So that can really only come from one place. But we get a lot of calls that look a lot like this. It's inconclusive. There is some water there, but just by looking at it, you can't tell where it's coming from or what might be broken. So we're going to have our operators respond, and really what they're trying to do is figure out what's leaking. You know, where's it coming from, and is it even a water leak at all? Groundwater can come to the surface and mimic leaks, and we get reports that turned out to be, you know, from natural sources sometimes. And a lot of leaks can happen behind the meters, you know, outside of our water system and beyond our jurisdiction. So private plumbing, irrigation systems, things like that. A good way to rule out a private side leak is to look at all the meters in the area and see if one of them is showing a high flow. You know, it'll be spinning and, you know, obviously indicating that a lot of water is moving through that meter. And then we can work with the property owner or the customer there and let them know that they have an issue going on. A key source of information for our operators is maps. So, you know, using our GIS maps that our GIS staff keep up to date for us to see, you know, where the pipes, the valves, the meters, and maybe another agency might have a pipe in that street if it's near the edge of our service area. We can test the water that is on the surface, and we can try to see if it looks like groundwater or if it has chlorine, fluoride, or a specific measurement of conductivity. That would tell us that it's coming out of our water system. And one of the really important investigative tools that we have is just listening. And that's what you see in the photo here. So Kevin, one of our operators, he's using a metal valve key. So that's the tool that you use to turn a valve. He's got that pressed against the hydrant, and he's got his ear pressed against the back of that key. So what he's trying to do is hear water whistling through a small orifice, and it makes a hissing sound, and that vibrates the metal and comes all the way up to the surface. So by listening on a hydrant and maybe a meter and maybe a valve, he can start to get an idea of what might be going on. And we have some electronic equipment that does this as well and can really help pinpoint the location of a leak.
But this is really cool. I mean, it's like a big giant stethoscope on the hydrant.
It is. That's exactly what it is. And actually, we have some with headphones and a little microphone that you can press against those surfaces, and yeah, much like a stethoscope. So if a main break or a service leak, for that matter, is confirmed, then we start making some calls and things start to happen. So if it's during a typical workday, that first responder, they're going to call back to the office, get a hold of the construction and maintenance supervisor, someone in that group, and say, hey, we got a main break out here, and here's what it looks like, and here's what's going on scene. If it's after hours, we have someone on duty who has the role of an incident response leader. So their job is to, if there is a main break that is going to require a crew to come out and fix, they're going to lead that crew. So one of those folks is going to be notified, and they're going to start making decisions about how to proceed. Now, we do fix most of these main breaks immediately, but there are times and situations where we might wait till the next work day or the next shift. If the situation looks stable, it's not going to cause any damage, and doesn't look like it's going to get any worse, then sometimes we'll go ahead and postpone that. So we're not calling people in after hours if we don't have to, and things like that. The thing about leaks, though, is they never get better on their own. So that's why we fix most of them when they're discovered. We can and often do manipulate valves to throttle that flow of water that's coming out of the leak. So that minimizes damage and minimizes the amount of water that's coming to the surface. But it's really important that we keep a positive pressure in the system, and that's we want water flowing out of that leak because that's what prevents dirt and contaminants from coming into that pipe. So when we start to spool up for response, there's several notifications that happen. So the first is we call for emergency locates, and that gets the other utility owners out there to mark where their pipes and wires and everything else is under the ground, because we know we're going to have to dig. And that takes time. It takes time for all them to respond, and so we want to start that process as soon as possible. If we're in an after-hours situation and we need to call in folks from home, we have an automated system that does that for us and sends a text message and a robotic voice call to different lists of folks depending on what's needed for response. And our supervisor or the incident response leader is going to send out a notification email to a group of folks within TVWD to let them know what's going on, where they're going to be working and what the situation looks like. That just keeps everyone aware of what's going on, especially helpful during the day when our customer service staff might be getting phone calls about dirty water, low pressure, things like that. It helps them be able to answer those questions. And sometimes we'll put a post on our website. So we try to do that so that, a lot of customers, that's their first outreach to us is they're going to go to the website, see if there's any information about what's going on. And so we like to have that available to them. Now, as far as equipment and operators, typical response crew is going to be 4 people. Each of them is going to bring a piece of equipment out there. We got a couple of dump trucks, an excavator, a service truck brings tools and parts, and a Vector truck. And I'll talk a little more about the Vector truck here in a bit. But this goes to show you how important it is that we have our fleet always ready to go, and our fleet staff here does a great job of keeping our equipment in good shape and making sure it's ready for things like this. And so when these folks start to get on scene, they got a lot of things to think about when they're setting up their work zone. So they have to create a safe space for them to work, but we also have to keep that space safe for the public and folks driving by, folks walking by. Depending on the situation, we can have quite the group of spectators sometimes because it's an interesting thing to watch, and we got to make sure that we can keep folks out of danger. Night work obviously requires lighting. And even driving on the roadway near a leak can be a a risk because all that pressurized water blasting through the roadway structure can undermine the pavement. And a lot of times the pavement will look like it's intact, but there's nothing underneath supporting it anymore. You can see in the picture here, how much it can buckle the asphalt and cause problems. And then of course there's a lot of times we'll have overhead hazards in neighborhoods, with overhead wires and trees and different things, that are a challenge to work around. So that's what they're looking at with their scene size up and figuring out how to stage equipment. And here's just a typical photo of a work zone. So we've taken a lane of traffic. We got lucky here. The main was off to the side of the road so that we were able to leave some room there for cars to get by. But you got your service truck, you got your dump trucks. There's always a vac on scene. That's a really important tool for us. And you got the excavator down there at the end. Sometimes these things will have to reposition and move in and out as the work progresses. Now, most of our pipes are in the street, which means that we've got the very first thing we have to do is cut the pavement. And sometimes it's, only a couple inches thick. And then other times, gosh, we've been on roads in like Cornell and a couple of challenging roads around the district where the asphalt can be like 20, 21 inches thick. So cutting through that can be a real challenge. And knowing where to cut can be a real challenge. So water can do funny things. It might be coming out of the pipe in one spot, but it finds some pathway to the surface and shows itself, 50 feet away or even more sometimes. So that's another one of these kind of little bit of art, little bit of science, for those folks to figure out where do they start, so that they can keep their excavation area small, keep their repaving area small, because paying to repave these roads after we do the work is obviously part of our responsibility, and we want to keep that as reasonable as we can. So let's talk about the vac. So these units are really important to us. It's obviously a large truck, and on board is a pressure washer pump and a large vacuum unit. So this one holds, I think it's like 1,000 gallons of material, maybe a little bit more, and brings its own water for the pressure washer. But you just use the pressure washer as a big cutting tool, and it just turns the soil and rock into a slurry, and then the vac tube sucks it up, gets it out of the way. So if you think about working around other utilities, gas lines, buried power lines, sewer, all the different things that are in the roadway next to our pipes, this is a much better tool than an excavator bucket or even a hand shovel, really, which is the only alternative when it comes to getting down and seeing what's going on. We've had challenges before, and I've, one of my pictures on the screen here is a Twitter post from last year, I believe, or a year and a half ago, when one of our crews hit a gas line that was it was located, but the marks were about 5 feet off of where the actual gas line was. And, it looked like we had a clear zone that we could dig with the excavator. And we hit a gas line, had to evacuate some homes. TBF&R had to come out. It was quite the deal. And this photo was actually taken from the news helicopter that was buzzing around. So using the vac has a lot of advantages, and working around other utilities is one of the big ones. You can see in that photo as well, there's a lot of water. Obviously there's a broken water main in these holes, and so it's always pushing a bunch of water up and muddy water, and there's no good way to dispose of that. The vac does a great job of it, but if we didn't have the vac, you'd just be pumping it onto the street, and that just makes a big mess. And Clean Water Services obviously frowns upon that. So great tool for us. This leak was just last Sunday. Another demonstration of how the vac can be pretty handy. So you can see there's a green pipe there. That's a gas service line. There's an unidentified pipe right next to it, which is probably an old gas service line, but you can never tell for sure. And we're under a sidewalk. So it's important that we're able to investigate the leak, figure out exactly what's going on and what's needed for the repair before we pull that sidewalk panel and really, start racking up repair costs. But in this case, that was the answer. The crew was able to dig down. You can see a stainless steel repair band on that cast iron pipe there. And that was a pretty straightforward fix. Looks like it wasn't too deep either. When we dig underground, we have to make sure that we do that safely. We don't want any kind of trench collapse that could injure our operators, so we use shoring. Sometimes we can bench out an excavation, so just dig a wider hole and move those trench walls away from the operators. But you don't always have room to do that, and it also requires a lot of material and a lot of digging to do that. So here we're using a shield. We have other shoring equipment available to us, and there's actually some local suppliers that can help us with shoring if our stuff isn't the right match for the job. But all this is going into exposing the pipe and seeing what's going on. So once we can do that, the operators can start to plan what the repair strategy is going to be. Are they going to be able to put a repair band on it, like typically we do with a shear break? Or are they going to have to cut out a section of pipe and replace it? So a lot of times our corrosion leaks lead to a full shutdown and having to sleeve in a replacement piece of pipe. It's a pretty complicated operation, requires a lot more thinking and a lot more resources and a lot more time. So if we have to do a shutdown, then we know we're in for a little more work. So generally that process goes just like this. We're going to look at where is our problem? What area of pipe do we need to isolate, and which valves are going to have to be turned off to drain that out? Once we identify those valves, you can start to see how many service lines are going to be impacted, and you can also see whether or not you're going to have an issue with thrust restraint. So the water pressure in our system, is always pushing out on the pipes and everything that's holding it back. So if we turn off a valve and we got all that water pressure pushing on one side of a valve, and then we cut out the pipe behind that valve, it's going to want to try to push the valve off the pipe. So that's obviously a big problem, and we've got to account for that. And one of the ways you do that is just being a long distance away from that valve and letting the soil that's in between you and where you're cutting the pipe help to hold that back. The meters that are affected in a shutdown area, we always turn those off. That keeps the private plumbing in the homes from draining out and filling up with air. And it also helps keep other material out of the water system. And a really important thing in a shutdown, especially with a leak scenario, is excavating down below the elevation of that pipe. And as we do that and as we drain it down, we want to be pumping all that water out. And that, again, keeps foreign material from re-entering the pipe and possibly contaminating things. So after it's all been drained and shut down, we can cut out the bad section, replace it with a new section. We will recharge that, repressurize it while the excavation is still open so that they can visually check for leaks. And if everything looks good, we can start to backfill and compact and then be flushing off the system. We always collect a water quality sample that goes to the lab for analysis. And lastly, we can turn everybody's services back on and get them back in water. And every once in a while, you'll hear the unfortunate news of a boil water advisory that's tied to a main break. And I just wanted to touch on that briefly and explain why that can happen. It doesn't happen to all of them. But in a case like this, what happened was there was a complete loss of pressure. It was an uncontrolled main break. We were not able to guarantee that we had positive flow coming out of the hole in the pipe at all times. What happened on this particular instance was an excavator was digging without locate marks, and they had about a 4-foot deep hole and crunched it was only a 2-inch diameter main. It just fed a short cul-de-sac street, but it was a one-way feed, so this pipe just went up to a dead end and had a few services off of it. So obviously downstream of where it was broken, there was no positive water pressure that could keep things out of the pipe. So we had to issue a boil water advisory for these 4 customers that were beyond the leak location. And then after we repaired the pipe and flushed everything off, took that sample into the lab, it came back clean. They didn't have to boil their water for more than 24 hours, but still that can be a real challenge. And lastly, I just wanted to recognize that, all of these repairs are done by our own operators and everyone else at the district that, supports these efforts. And When you think about the numbers of hours, in a week, it's 168. So 7 days times 24 hours, 168. So our 40-hour work week only covers about a half of that or a quarter of that time. So a lot of times, these folks are getting out of bed at night. They're giving up their weekends to come in and do this. And, without that dedicated service, we wouldn't be able to provide the very reliable water service that we do to our customers. So appreciate our operators. We appreciate everybody that works together here at the district to support these efforts, both in engineering and all across the organization. So we hope that our customers appreciate them too. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Pete, that was wonderful. And the photographs are so, that the few times that I have been close enough to see the crews in action dealing with one of these big things, it's incredibly impressive. And I I think that one of our virtual town halls really needs to be something along this line, and maybe that's what the distribution one coming up will do, is to show people what all you guys do. It's just amazing. And thank you.
Well, thank you. And yes, there will be some of this material in December for our virtual town hall, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's amazing to watch our folks in action.
And I just wanted to point out, I told you this part would be way more exciting. And so.
Wait, was that a caution, boring stuff ahead sign?
Well, Dave's always got really cool pictures.
I know he does. He's good on pictures.
but I think he got one up tonight by Pete. So.
So do we have questions from other commissioners? And is there anything else on the CEO report?
There's nothing else from me, no.
Okay, so in that case, we will move along to Commissioner Communications and reports of meetings attended. Commissioner Doan, will you please lead us off?
Sure, as soon as I get control of the electronics here. Let's see, of course, there's tonight's meeting, and then I attended a AWWA webinar on new and not so new contaminants. I attended a webinar on microplastics that Tom got me into. There was a Willamette Inlet Facilities meeting, and we covered a bunch of stuff. Mostly, how are we going to do things in the future, and information like that, and set the schedule for the next meeting. It's working fairly well. The group is still harmoniously working, and I think that's good. And then on November 2nd, I worked on a CEO evaluation. That's it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Duggan, will you be next, please?
Yes, I think I'm ready here. First meeting or event that I attended was, and I'm really glad that staff had a second time to offer this, was the Emergency Preparation Forum. Like I said, I wasn't able to attend the very first time it was offered, and I guess it was a sellout crowd that first time, so I was glad it was allowed to, or the staff prepared and had a second meeting. I was able to attend that on the 29th of October. Staff did an excellent job of communicating everything you need to do to prepare for the big one, so to speak, our Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, and then not just other tidbits on how our water system works, which was good. On the 3rd of November, I met with Amy Blue to discuss the annual CEO evaluation. On the 5th of November was the regular WWSS board meeting, which went like clockwork, and then tonight's meeting. So that's all I have for the last month.
That sounds like a reasonably busy month. Commissioner Sanders, how about you next?
Thank you. The only meeting I have to report this month is today's meeting.
What? There were no secret meetings with staff or anything like that?
Well, I did participate in the CEO evaluation meeting. So yes, thank you for reminding me of that.
That one counts. Put it down. That's very important.
So I'll include that one. And that would make it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Schmidt, how about you?
Yes, on the 2nd of November, I met with Bernice and Tom to discuss the agenda tonight for tonight. And then I had a meeting with Amy about the CEO compensation and tonight's meeting.
So I just saw a comment come up that Paul Matthews indicated that he met with Commissioner Sanders on the water usage stats. And my understanding is that some interesting information came out of that. So Commissioner Sanders, you should definitely put that one down as well. Thank you.
I will do that.
All right. And lastly is me. On the 5th of November, I had a meeting with our HR director, Amy Blue, to talk about the CEO performance evaluation. On the 10th of November, I had a meeting with our CEO and the board vice president to do agenda planning. And of course, tonight's meeting, the regular board meeting for district business. So that is it for me. Do we have any topics to be raised by commissioners? I hear the sounds of silence, so we'll move smoothly to the public comment portion. Public comment time is set aside for persons wishing to address the board on items on the agenda and matters not on the regular agenda. Do we have any persons who would like to comment tonight? Seeing and hearing none, I will move to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Any items that are requested to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved those items which do not require a separate discussion. Tonight's consent agenda has 2 items. The first is to approve the October 21st, 2020 regular meeting minutes. And the second is to approve the appointment of the budget officer for this year and the budget committee members. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
This is Jim Doan, so moved.
This is Dick, second.
Commissioner Doan has moved and Commissioner Schmidt seconded. So if there is no other discussion, Catherine, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bagnall?
Yes.
Commissioner Doan?
Yes.
Commissioner Duggan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you. It is unanimous. The motion passes, and I can't reach my gavel, so you're just gonna have to believe me. Next, we will move to informational presentations. And the first one, we have 2 this evening. The first presentation is the Willamette Water Supply System Commission update with a staff report from Dave Kraska and pictures.
Lots of pictures. Thank you, President Bagnall, and good evening, commissioners. Before I start, this might not be quite as good as Pete Boone's presentation, but Pete Boone is really good at this stuff. I'll even recall a presentation before I joined the district I sat in on where he made a presentation to the TVWD board. I believe it was about the Garden Home Reservoir project, and it was a superb presentation. He did a great job with that one, and it continues with the presentation tonight. But I also remember from that presentation years ago, Commissioner Doan asked a question about the slump of the concrete that was used for that project, and Pete knew the answer to that question. So anyways, yes, Pete is really good at this stuff. So quick confirmation, can you see my presentation?
We see it. I see it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So off we go. So tonight, the outline is the usual one. Going to review the December Willamette Water Supply System Commission board meeting agenda. That's the meeting that's going to take place in about 2 weeks on December 3rd. Review also our approvals and procurements forecast to let you know what's coming up in the next couple of months, and our usual update on the WWSP activities. So reviewing the December Commission board meeting agenda. Start off with our general manager's report. Public comment, the consent agenda is just the meeting minutes from the November meeting. And then we have 3 business agenda items. The first one is just a real estate activity to adopt a PLM 5.3 supplemental resolution of public necessity. PLM 5.3 again is our pipeline project up Grabhorn Road and up across Farmington Road to Rosedale. We're also going to be adopting an MPE 1.2 supplemental resolution of public necessity. That again is a real estate activity for our MPE 1.2 project, which is the pipeline in Shoals Ferry Road that is crossing Highway 217. And then the third item is approving our Reservoir 1.0 PLM 5.3 CMGC contract. And so this is a pretty major event for us of selecting the contractor for this really large project, about $120 million project for reservoirs on top of Grabhorn, up on top of Cooper Mountain, and our PLM 5.3 project that I just referenced moments ago. So that's a big event for us. And then finally, our information items will be covering the planned January business agenda items. Looking ahead now to our approvals and procurements forecast. Starting with our program baseline related plans. Right now, no activity there. Now, we're currently working on our baseline for the next fiscal year and updating that, but right now there's no activity, no approvals needed currently or over the next couple of months to come. Real estate activities are the 2 real estate activities I just mentioned moments ago. We have 4 IGAs that we're currently working on or have recently approved. The first one there for TVWD, it's a relocation of an 18-inch pipeline on our PLW 1.2 project. That one was approved in the November meeting. With Washington County, we have a design IGA amendment number 2 for our PLM 4.2 project. That one was approved at our November meeting. And we have one coming up in our January meeting, which is a construction IGA for the PLM 4.1 project. PLM 4.1, PLM 4.2, those are pipeline projects in Tualatin Sherwood Road in Sherwood. Then with the city of Beaverton, we have a construction IGA for the MPE 1.1 project. That's in western part of Beaverton, and that one as well was approved at the November meeting. Regarding contracts, just the one contract that we have to act on right now. It's the one I just mentioned about our CMGC contractor for the Res 1.0 PLM 5.3 combined project. And how about this slide? Regarding contract amendments and change orders, we're taking a break. We don't have any in the offing, any recently approved. And so this one is a happy sight for me at least. Regarding local contract review board exemptions, we had one that was recently approved for using alternative contracting methods, namely best value selection for our PLW 2.0 project. That's the project, our pipeline project in Cornelius Pass Road up to Highway 26. And then we have one coming up for our DCS, that's our distributed control system panel fabrication services, where we're looking to go through a special procurement for those services. Now, moving on to WWSP activities. Lots going on. Here's our usual project delivery progress. 4 projects highlighted tonight. Our PLM 1.1 project, that's our pipeline project down in Wilsonville, right near the treatment plant. We have all of the pipe installed on that project to date, and so that's a big achievement for us there. That was a tricky little project, a difficult one to get through, but we got all the pipe in. Our PLM 4.1 project, that again is our pipeline project that crosses Highway 99 at 12-inch Road Road. That one is 100% design is in production. We'll be going to bidding on that one in the not too distant future. As mentioned before, CMGC selected for our PLM 5.3 Res 1.0 project. And we've also received our 60% design for the reservoir part of that combined project. And the last project here to highlight is our PLW 2.0 project. Again, our pipeline project in Corn Pass up to Highway 26. That one we've received our 90% design submittal. This graphic, we're continuing to work on.
It is really exciting to see so much dark green on that graph. I mean, you guys are just cruising.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's a heck of a lot of work going on. A lot of very busy time. I tell you, it's again, a little aside, it's a weird busy time because we all used to work in the program management office, and I used to see it all happening. And now I see it happen through Zoom meetings and phone calls and emails and stuff like that. So, but we're still showing all the progress. We haven't been slowed at all, and it's still all happening. So that's exciting times. But yeah, so this
Amazing.
is the, go ahead.
Oh, it's amazing. And it is really encouraging to see that despite all of the challenges, things are just continuing to move forward. That's wonderful. And it's, you know, it says a lot for the whole team.
Thank you. Pass that along. So, well, this graphic here, you'll see it's going green from left to right, and then there's that single column that's just construction. And pretty soon, frankly, about a year from now, everything is going to be in construction. It's either will have been constructed or will be heading rapidly towards construction. So we're still working on a graphic to better show that. And this is the one that we'll be moving towards, probably with some additional edits. On the left-hand side of this, you see all the projects starting with the raw water facilities and the raw water pipelines, the finished water pipelines, the treatment plant, the reservoirs. And then the blue bars that will be going from left to right as we complete those projects. You can see with the green check marks there, we have 3 pipeline projects completed. And with the other 6 blue bars that are advancing, six blue bars advancing are the 6 active projects that are currently underway. And so this is the graph that we're going to be looking at over the next years, that will be eventually all of this white space will be covered with blue as we get more of these construction projects going and completed. So let's talk about those construction projects. And here are the 6 that we're going to talk about. And I've got a few good pictures to show you some updates on each of them. So starting with to the south, our raw water facilities project. A lot of activity happening there at that site. Deep soil mixing test columns are completed. Just as a reminder, the technologies that we're using to stabilize the bank of the Willamette River, just at the edge of the raw water pump station, are 2 technologies: deep soil mixing and jet grouting. Those will be the technologies that will be used to stiffen and harden the soil in the area to basically buttress it against any land movement and keep the raw water pump station stabilized in the event of a major earthquake. So as I mentioned, the test columns are completed and they're starting the production work on the deep soil mixing. Jet grouting calibration test columns are also completed. We've completed spoil handling at the area of the lower site. We began building foundation piles at the upper site. And we've completed secant piles for the trenchless launch shaft at Arrowhead Creek. Now that's the crossing of the creek right by the right as you enter the water treatment plant, and we've installed dewatering wells at both sides of both of the trenchless shafts. So here's a first photo of the raw water facilities project, and here the drone is, say, right essentially over the Willamette River, looking north up towards the water treatment plant there that you see on the right of the photo. On the left of the photo is the riparian area, and right in the center is the brown area, where is our construction site. You can see construction fencing on either side of that. On the left side of the construction fencing protects the riparian area from our construction activities, and the right side protects it from the pathway that the residents in the area can still use for walking dogs and stuff like that. And so we're trying to keep that open as long as possible. This is an aerial shot of our upper site. And so the bright green swaths of land that you see there are our berms. And so we had the contractor construct those and hydroseed them early. So they'll act as both visual and noise buffers of our construction activities from the residents right there in the area. And so they show up really bright under these conditions. You see right there in the center of the photo is one of the pieces of equipment that's used for the continuous flight auger piles, the CFA piles that are being drilled to support the building that will be constructed in that location, again for seismic resiliency. You can see some of the equipment that's being used to construct the secant pile caissons for crossing the Arrowhead Creek. And if you look up toward the upper part of that photo, you can also see basically the scar that goes through the nursery stock there. That's actually our PLM 1.1 project that is essentially nearing completion right now as we speak. So again, a lot of activity happening in these areas. Now, moving back down to the Willamette River, down to the riverbank there, at the top of the photo, the upper right of the photo, the blue area there, that's the Willamette River. And so this is where we're going to be doing the deep soil mixing and the jet grouting to stabilize the soil and keep the raw water pump station from moving. The raw water pump station is that square building that's right there more or less toward the center bottom of the photo. Next slide here shows kind of on the just pivoting toward, that would be toward the west. So now the raw water pump station there is on the left of this photo. And you can see some of the deep soil mixing equipment that's been mobilized to begin doing their work. And if you look toward the center left of the photo, you can see some sheet piles that are in kind of a semicircular arrangement. And those sheet piles are constructed there to keep a significant tree that was very important to the city and preserve it from the activity that we have going on here. Actually, it's two trees that are right next to each other that we're protecting and hope to preserve throughout all this activity that we're doing there. So regarding this project, lots of external coordination with the city of Wilsonville and Veolia on some work they have at their treatment plant, including GAC replacement and electrical upgrades at the treatment plant. A lot of continued coordination with the nearby neighbors and the public, and continued coordination with the project just on the other side of Arrowhead Creek there, the PLM 1.1 project. A couple of potential claims that we're hearing from the contractor for differing site conditions that they're claiming. So we're going to evaluate the merits of that claim and work with the contractor on it. But outside of that, no delivery challenges on this complex project so far. Moving now on to our PLM 1.1 project, again, just on the other side of Arrowhead Creek there in the Wilsonville area. We've completed the Coffee Lake Creek streamback restoration, got a picture of that. Final grading and topsoil restoration on the easements, basically the nursery stock area. We've completed our undercrossing of the Wilsonville 63-inch water line, completed all the pipeline installation. We began filling in pressure testing our pipeline, and we're essentially heading towards substantial completion and punch list work now. So this is a really exciting photo. What you see there being suspended by the yellow strapping there is the 63-inch water line from the city of Wilsonville. So it's all of the water that's produced at the water treatment plant goes through that pipeline, supplies water to the city of Wilsonville and the city of Sherwood. So it was a highly critical pipeline that we had to absolutely make sure we preserved and protected while we installed our big 66-inch pipeline immediately below it. And you can see just the top of our pipeline poking through the backfill that's on either side of the pipeline there. So this was a real hair-raising part of the project that all of us were very concerned about, but it went off without a hitch. The 63-inch pipe did not move at all. and everything was completed superbly. So the team out there did a fantastic job with this very difficult and risky piece of work. Our drone shot here shows the Coffee Lake Creek in the foreground there. In the tan or rust colored area is all the stream bank restoration work that our crews have done. And I haven't been out there in the recent past, but I'm told it's superb work. If you remember some of the photos I've been showing over the last couple of months, we had basically dammed up and dewatered that creek so we could do a dry open cut crossing of our pipeline through that. All of that's been restored, and the stream bank has been restored, and it's back to its original configuration. So successful completion there. And this is a drone shot of just on the other side of the roadway there, showing our last piece of the elbow there of pipeline being installed and completed. They're finishing up this about 1,500 feet of pipe. It's not a lot of pipe, but it was a very challenging project, and it was done without any upsets. So successful completion on this one. Still, lots of external coordination on this one. It's a very busy area. City of Wilsonville is going to be repaving Kinsman Road in the area. We have various businesses there with the Wilsonville Concrete Products and ORPAC. BPA coordination, high voltage power lines in the area to make sure we're working safely around them. And coordination access of PLM 1.1 work sites, so to enable everything going for our raw water facility project. With all of that, however, no potential claims. And as regarding delivery challenges, you might recall all the pictures of the boulders or erratics that have been showing again over the months. And we're expecting that maybe the contractor is going to expect some additional compensation for that, but so far we haven't heard anything on that yet. Moving up a little bit north to the north end of Wilsonville is our PLM 1.2 project in Garden Acres Road. A lot of activity on that one. We're about 97% complete with the pipeline installation on that one, 3,445 feet so far. We've installed all of our 66-inch carrier pipe north of Day Road. The only remaining pipe is the last 100 feet to connect to our PLM 3.0 project. The contractor is also working on interior grouting of the joints, installation of our corrosion protection system, the CP system, locating stations and air valve assemblies, and filling and pressure testing is upcoming. So this shows the end of the project there. On the left-hand side there, you see the dished head. That's our PLM 3 project that was installed a year or two ago now, and it's just been sitting there waiting for this project to come along and connect to it. And so our PLM 1.2 project is just finishing up. It's going to be finished installation and testing, and then it will be connected to the PLM 3 project pipeline there by cutting off the dished head and finishing up that final connection. Installation of anodes and cathodic protection systems is underway. You can see some of the anodes being installed here. And as well, this is the equipment and safety and protective equipment used for enabling the workers to get inside the pipe to do the interior joint grouting. Partner coordination, ongoing coordination with the City of Wilsonville, because you might recall this is actually a City of Wilsonville project. It's a roadway project that we were able to get done with them, get our pipeline project made part of that roadway project. So still a lot of coordination with Wilsonville. However, no claims on our work there. Regarding delivery challenges, you know that photo that I just showed you about our PLM 1.2 project coming up to the PLM 3 project. It lines up pretty good, except that there was a little bit of a bust made in the design where there was an offset vertically about how the PLM 1.2 project comes up to the existing PLM 3 project. And our design engineers are all over it, coming up with a fix of how to address that goof. And it's going to be addressed apparently without much change to the schedule. And I don't anticipate any impact to our costs. Moving up north to Roy Rogers Road and Shoals Ferry Road, our PLM 5.1 project. This again is our project that we're doing in concert with Washington County's expansion of Roy Rogers Road. Continuing our 66-inch pipeline installation, 4,033 feet installed so far, about 56% of the total installation. And we're continuing our installation of our corrosion protection systems, air vault assemblies, and 30-inch access ways. And this is just a photo of one of the appurtenance vaults along Roy Rogers Road. Kind of a messy photo, but just gives you an idea of what one of our vaults looks like for appurtenances. Again, another aerial drone photo of our pipeline installation. Roy Rogers Road there is just to the left-hand side of this graphic, of the photo. And this is us finishing up our work across Jean Louise Road, where our crews are hurrying up to repave that area to get that intersection opened up for the folks that live back in that area. Very smooth project though, continued developer coordination, no issues with the Washington County coordination, no claims, no delivery challenges. So again, still a smoothly run project. PLM 5.2 project just north of there, Schultz Ferry Road, tile flat up to Grabhorn Road. We've completed our disinfection and bacteriological testing. We've continued to complete our testing of the air relief valves, continuing and completing our cathodic protection and locate station installations and testing. Continued our property restoration and substantial completion of punch list activities. So basically just wrapping this one up. And this just shows activity for discharging the disinfection water that we've had in the pipe from one of the blow-offs. Some hydroseeding for surface restoration. External coordination, a little bit of coordination with the city of Beaverton regarding water use and with Clean Water Services regarding the discharge of our testing water. As well with this one, however, no claims, no delivery challenges. Then finally, PLW 1.3, our pipeline project in South Hillsborough. This one has slowed down a little bit while we've had some coordination with the developers in the area. But so far, so a light update this month. But we've done some temporary construction of the water line. Temporary construction water line has been installed. Our erosion control systems are being maintained. Test observation well installations for dewatering systems development, and then micro tunnel shaft construction begins in December, so next month. So this is all the only photo I have to show you that project right now, just the erosion control systems that we have installed and that we're maintaining to protect our area. So with this one, just continued coordination with Reed's Crossing and Butternut Creek developments. No claims, and then regarding delivery challenges, just the availability of access to the alignment north of Butternut Creek that we've been working through, but we'll get through that. And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions.
Dave, this is Jim Doan. Heading north off Rosedale or Roselawn, I never can remember. Is our route that thing that looks like a road?
Yes, so that's all undeveloped lands.
Okay.
Yep, but it is.
I drive by there every other day, and I'm trying to pick out where our stuff is. And thank you for telling me.
Okay, sure.
Dave, this is Todd Sanders, and I apologize. I might have asked this question a year or so ago, but it's about the cathodic protection. Ooh. And if you track its rate of degradation, if it ever gets replaced, so on and so forth. It's just, it's a cool thing, because I know that the district's had some problems with some of its mains through the years and the acidity of the clay. Tell me more about cathodic protection. I love cathodic protection.
Oh boy. So let me just full disclosure. You're asking me something that I know not a lot about. I'd be more than happy to come prepared at the next meeting with a full explanation, or basically let's call it a layperson's explanation of our approach to cathodic protection, our approach to corrosion protection, say, because we're approaching it in multiple ways, both through sacrificial anodes and then also through the coatings selections that we've used, and it's all done very purposefully. But yeah, so the plan is though to use sacrificial anodes along the pipeline that are electrically connected to the pipeline. So if a corrosive environment were to occur, that would lead our pipes to look like the pipes that were in Pete Boone's photos. Rather than corroding the pipe, it would corrode these anodes. They would sacrifice themselves to save the pipe. And so there's a whole science behind it and a whole approach in terms of how long do we expect these anodes to last? How do we go about testing them? How do we maintain them and everything? All of that is well developed and planned, but quite frankly, I'm not prepared to give it justice and provide a proper
Well, I
explanation.
hope the sacrificial anodes like send up a white flag and send you a message. I'm dying here, you know. So.
There is a way of checking that, yes.
Dave, this is Jim Doan again. So we've decided to use sacrificial anodes rather than impressed current?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. When you're picking up the stuff for Todd, could you let me know how that decision was made?
Absolutely. Yep, I can cover that as well. And there, just to, without getting too engineering, but I think I need to cover it as well, is that it does vary because since our project is so vast and covers so many different areas with so many different soil conditions, another challenge, so we've had to use multiple technologies. And one of the areas that gets interesting is where we cross BPA facilities. And so when we talk about impressed current, you actually can get stray currents from going underneath these BPA facilities, and we have to account for that. And so we have approaches for dealing with all of this, but again, I'm just not prepared to present it tonight. But the next time I'm in front of you with one of these updates, I'd be glad to give us a few slides on all of that.
Thanks, man. Sorry for opening Pandora's box there, but you know,
No,
zinc anodes are always a cool thing, and I know they disappear over time. So I was just curious to hear approximately how long the expectation was that they were going to last, because the ones the guys had there were pretty large.
Yes.
In the pictures, those were big. So I was curious to hear about what the timeline was on those.
Yep. Be glad to cover that the next time. If you let me a little bit of time to get prepared for that.
Well, this was, you know, these things are always interesting. and this was my first time for sacrificial anodes. I mean, you may have discussed them before and somehow I missed it, but that was a new thing for me tonight, and I appreciate that.
Dave, this is Jim Duggan. I have a question regarding governance, and I am reticent to bring it up, but I thought that it might be something that had been discussed at the management committee meeting, and that is in regard to the representation from Beaverton. Mayor Denny Doyle was not reelected, and it seems like he's not going to be reappointed as a commissioner to the WWSS. Is there any indication from Beaverton who might be the Beaverton's commissioner representative as we go into 2021?
So yes, I've spoken to Beaverton about that to make sure that there's a plan in place. And so where it stands right now is Mayor Doyle will attend the December meeting, and that will probably be his last meeting. For the January and February meetings, Councillor Mitchell will be, she's the alternate for Mayor Denny Doyle anyways, and so she'll be attending, she'll be attending the January and February meetings. And in that time period, either January or February, the council will go through their assignments in terms of who's on which committees and such. And so during that period of time, we'll find out, starting, say, the March meeting, who will be Beaverton's representative.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that.
Do we have other questions or comments for Dave? Hearing, oh, sorry, Dick, you got something?
Yep, this is Dick, and I'm amazed at the progress we're making under your quite capable leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Got a really good team.
It is indeed impressive. So we have another informational presentation tonight, and that would be an update on the district's financial performance with a staff report from CFO Paul Matthews.
Okay, good evening, Commissioner Bagnall, President Bagnall and Commissioners. And I must admit, I don't have, as usual, I don't have any exciting photos, nor do I have great graphics of maps. So consider this as sort of a precursor to your nightcap. Get a warm glass of milk, and I will help you overcome any insomnia that you might otherwise experience. But we are going to talk about the district's financial performance in light of COVID. And following the same general outline that we've had before, I want to give you an update on the unemployment numbers, a little bit about how our customers are doing, and then I'm going to step right through the financial performance for the district. Start with the unemployment rate, and as you've seen this, we've watched this over the months. We now have the unemployment rates reported for September. They are 1 month behind. As you can see, the unemployment picture is improving steadily. Progress is slowed, and we are still well above where we were prior to COVID-19 pandemic. But we are getting down to the levels below where we would be, for example, during the overall financial crisis. One of the other things I wanted to look at is personal savings rate. And you might remember that we talked about this a few months ago. And what I've presented here first is the disposable personal income on a per capita basis. This is nationwide, so this is not specific to Oregon or to Washington County. That data is not available to me right now, but this does show nationwide. And you can see that we are actually above personal income, above where we were prior to the pandemic, which we kind of think of that as starting in the middle of March. So it kind of peaked in April. And a lot of that, of course, was from transfer payments coming from assistance that was provided by the federal government. The personal outlays, though, are the other part of the equation, how much people are spending. That's presented here in the red line. And you can see that dropped as the lockdown continued and it started to improve, but we're still below what we had prior to the pandemic. The difference between our disposable income and our outlays is our savings rate. And this I found to be interesting. But again, that shows the dramatic increase that we had as the pandemic picked up, as people's incomes went down. But as you see over time, it started to diminish, but we still have a very high personal savings rate. That's plotted on the left-hand axis here. So our households are, frankly, doing okay. There is a high level of unemployment. There are transfer payments to make them whole. A lot of people aren't being made whole, but some people are made more than whole. So on average, we're doing okay. Switching over to TVWD's financial performance, the same approach that we've had before. We look at revenues, collection, and expenses. First, on the revenue side, we're looking at water deliveries. I've talked about this in the past. In fact, actually, people and I were talking about this earlier this afternoon. We have this somewhat discrepancy between our water deliveries and our revenues. And you might remember early on, I showed you a picture of a leak that we had, wondering if maybe some of the water was not getting through our retail meters. But this shows the comparison of our water deliveries over the 5-year average, as well as through the rolling, as well as for the month. So this is the daily average for the month. You take the total amount of consumed in that month divided by the number of days in the month, and that's what we're plotting here. This was the topic of the meeting that we had with Commissioner Sanders. In addition to that, we're looking at on a per capita basis, And this was we actually made a change here based on our conversation with Commissioner Sanders. So I want to point that out, that the prior months when I presented this dash line was the historic 5 years. It was the prior 5 years and did not include actually it did not include the actual demands of the current year. So now it's the 4 prior years and the current year make up this 5-year average. But in any event, as you can see, on a per capita basis, we have seen somewhat of a, I'd say, a early parts of what might be a positive trend, at least back from the lows of the COVID period. Let me see if I can advance my slides. Something seems to be going a little slower. So the other thing that I first introduced to you last month was a way to look at our progress on a per customer class basis. And the way that I did that is I took the volume-based revenues and I divided it by the fixed charge revenues so we could see how that plays out over time. Our fixed charges, as you know, are fairly fixed. We do tend to have a positive variance, about $100,000 a month in that area. Our problem is on the volume-based revenues, and of course, with COVID, we've seen a little bit more of a downward trend. It happened before COVID, but it's continued. Challenge that we have here is, of course, our bi-monthly billing, and we have an unbalanced billing cycle. So we sort of have 1 month, I describe it as a tick-tock, and I'll show you that in an upcoming slide here. So when we looked at this last time, I had each of our customer classes broken out, and this is the volume revenue divided by the fixed charges, which is that metric that isolates growth, it isolates any sort of annexation withdrawal by Beaverton, and allows us to see what the customers are doing. Because of the difference in scale here, though, it makes it difficult really to see what's happening on any particular customer class. So we broke it down by customer classes. And Commissioner Doan, I need to apologize to you if these colors didn't come through. I tried to choose the colors right off of our sort of approved palette, but I want to get with you and make sure that we get these colors right. We spend a lot of time pulling these together, and it's really important that that you're able to.
This is Jim Doan. I printed it in black and white because that's my printer is black and white, and I was able to ascertain these from the various shades of gray. So don't worry about it. It worked out fine. I was a little upset when I first got it because I couldn't see a thing.
Oh.
But when I printed it, and the grays turned out very much distinctive from each other, and so I got it. But thank you very much for considering this.
Well, it's really important to us. We spend time preparing this so that you can have the information. So I still want to follow up to make sure we can get these colors correct and that they render in a proper way. So we'll figure out our next steps on that. I'll work with Tom. But in any event, what we see here is that longer term trend from October of 2016 through October of 2020. And if we shorten that trend and look over the last 2 years, again, you can see this is for our single family residential customer class, that trend is downward. If you look at October, I'm going to try to show this with my mouse. I hope that is visible with my mouse. You see somewhat of an upward trend, and we do that over the last 12-month period. Basically, the residential class seems to be a little flat with maybe somewhat of a recovery. We saw that in May, and I was hopeful that we'd see a strong summer, and that that did not materialize, and we reported a very poor summer performance. October, we are seeing what I consider to be maybe hopeful signs. 1 point doesn't create a trend, though, so we need to see where this goes in the coming months. As we do hit the November, December, January, February, things tend to stabilize because outdoor water use just isn't really a thing. So I would anticipate that we'll have a more stable revenue for our single family class. Moving on to multifamily class, looking over that 4-year trend, the same thing we saw last time. I'm going to pick up the speed over the 2-year trend, again, downward. But we look at the most recent trend, and again, we're trying to see, is there something that changed during the COVID environment? Not seeing that so much, and again, we do see that somewhat of recovery in the October timeframe. Moving on to our commercial class, that's where we do see the trend over the 2-year period, even more pronounced. And then, of course, we do still continue to see that trend over the 1-year period. And if you were just simply to look from April when the pandemic hit down through July when we were in that shutdown mode, and with that 2-month billing cycle kicking in, we are seeing that downward trend, and it looks like maybe that has stabilized as well. Our irrigation, we've already talked about this. We're exiting the irrigation season, so this becomes less important as we go forward. But here again, you can see that trend. Maybe it has stabilized as well over that October period. And then the production, that's the bright spot that we have. And so we see that. Don't know if that's going to reverse once NACI gets its construction complete, but it's a small amount of revenue, but it is a positive sign. So on balance, the water sales are holding about where they were, maybe somewhat of a recovery. On the collection side, we are seeing our average age of account receivables increasing somewhat. It went from 4.6 days to 5.4 days, somewhat of an increase. We typically do see an increase in October, November, and December as the summer bills are there and the winter bills remain somewhat less. Commissioner Bagnall, President Bagnall, fixed the typo on the account receivables. Here's the definition, though, of our days of sales outstanding.
I noticed. I was so impressed.
Wanted to make sure that we got that one in there. This is another measure of our collections. If we look at our days of sales outstanding, the trends are similar. October has continued the trend of more days sales outstanding. You can see that typical prior years we are at 21.4. We're 27. Would like to have seen that come down a little bit more than what we did see. And some of that is going to be based on what Mr. Hickman talked about earlier tonight, which is the number of customers that we do see in shutoff. Again, by definition, we would have shut these customers off. They met all the criteria of having been shut off, but we're in a moratorium on shutting off customers. So we've got about 1,572 customers. When I said we have an unbalanced billing cycle, we have kind of a tick-tock. If you look at April, that's a tick, May's a tock, June's a tick, July's a tock, August is a tick, September's a tock, and typically October then would be a tick. So we're seeing our customers in shutoff probably not coming down as much as we would like to have seen. In terms of the dollar balances, though, we have seen a reduction. I've added a slide to this presentation that we'll get to here in a bit that might explain part of that, but they're still quite high. And we're working with Community Action to help these customers get their balances down. The average age of account receivables for these customers increased from 68 to 72 days over that period of time. And so it's looking at just the customers that are meet this criteria for shutoff, what the average age of their account receivables is, 72 days. This is the new slide that I added, and I kind of want to walk through this a little bit without spending too much time on it. But we have the county gave an organization called Community Action a grant. It was funded with CARES Act dollars that came from the federal government. And that grant to Community Action was to help customers in Washington County pay their water, sewer, and stormwater bills. And to be eligible, you just need to be a resident of Washington County. You need to be at 80% of median household income adjusted for family size. And you need to get a bill from a municipal water provider, whether that's a special district, a city, and so forth. So what you see here are the agencies involved, most of them cities, and then the water districts that are involved, the number of commitments that they've received. And so these are actually commitments that Community Action has received. An application has completed the application, has found the customer to qualify for the assistance, and has actually granted the assistance. So we essentially are going to get paid this money as they process those bills. The value of the commitment is listed here. the total dollar amount. So for TVWD, we've had, as of the 12th of September, 200 commitments for a total of $121,000. Some of that is for sewer as well, so we collect for clean water services as well. Our average commitment is $606. And I think a couple things are important about that. First of all, we have deliberately been targeting customers with high balances and have had challenges paying their bills to get them into the utility assistance with community action. So we've been deliberate about this approach and trying to help those customers in particular. That $606 on average that these people will be able to go into the new year will not have as an outstanding bill from TVWD and Clean Water Services. So that's really great, and we're doing a great job at targeting those customers. This allows us to compare to some of the other agencies as well. Now, West Slope does not include on their utility bill sewer, so that's a little bit of a difference. So we're getting about 52.5% of the dollars from the program, and we've got about 42.5% of the commitments. We have about 35% of the population. So we're really focused on doing well, making sure that we convert as much of that assistance out there that's available to assistance for our customers to help them get through this time period. So I thought this was some really good news that customer service staff is working this issue real well, getting these customers the assistance that's available. With that, I'm going to transfer over to talk a little bit about the expenses. You'll see these expenses as we in the upcoming month in review. We obviously have our direct expenses. We have some leave-related expenses for COVID. We have some other intangible expenses. Watching that bad debt expense right now, that is not a problem for us. And our customer emergency assistance fund, we're not using that right now because we're maximizing the use of the CARES Act dollars. Here we are with our overall spend. We continue to underspend our budget and creates more flexibility for us as we continue to work through the COVID issues. So with that, answer any questions that you have or allow you to get on with your evening and continue your warm milk or nightcap or whatever it is that you need, in addition to a financial briefing to get your rest as we go into this holiday season.
Well, the financial briefing is always really helpful that way. But I do want to really, really extend my appreciation for all the work that you guys and customer service is doing on outreach, because, you know, programs like CARES, there's always, it seems to me anyway, like there's always so much money left on the table because people don't know about it and don't know how to access it. So really, really good work in getting those resources to our customers who need it. That I really appreciate that.
And we've learned a lot about that program and working very closely with Community Action. They administer the LIHEAP program. They administer programs for PGE, Pacificor, as well as Northwest Natural Gas on the energy assistance side. And typically what we learn is that only about 10% of people eligible, once they're given the application, will follow through that process. And so combination of our communication staff and our customer service staff really promoting the program and getting help to our customers. So it really is a great team effort. I do appreciate that because it is going to help our customers as they begin the new year to have some of this debt taken off of their shoulders.
Yeah, I was also interested and pleased to see that our budget committee member, Carl Fisher, was looking for information on this that he could get out to people that he knows about. And good job to all of you in responding to him on that.
Yeah, this is Jim Duggan. I think that slide that you had up comparing the different water providers and the fact that we only have 35% of the potential customers, so to speak, but 52% of the funds, 52.5% of the dollars went to our customers. That is an impressive success. And again, I echo Bernice's admiration and appreciation of our staff doing all that outreach work to really do as much as we can to take advantage of that source, because it not only helps our customers, it helps our bottom line too. So that's fantastic. So thank you.
This is Dick. I have a question, Paul. The $606, was that given to the families that are behind in their water bills, or was that given directly to the Tualatin Valley Water District attached to an address?
Yeah, the way that works, Commissioner Schmidt, is that the customer applies, is qualified, and community action, then we send them essentially a copy of the bill. We tell them how much their outstanding balance is, and then community action makes a commitment to us that they will pay that from those grant funds, and then the money is sent directly from community action to TVWD, and then of course we apply it to the customer's balance, and it goes back to either TVWD, Clean Water Services, or the City of Beaverton, depending on who the sewer provider is. So the money comes directly to TVWD from community action. The CARES Act was written in such a way that, I mean, ideally what we would like is to have the grant money just come to us. We would apply it to a customer's bill that's qualified and be done with this. But the way that the CARES Act was written is that those monies can't be used to backfill revenue loss from local governments. So what the county did was make a grant to community action that is helping the customers directly. So we're not considered a subrecipient of their grant money. It actually is on behalf of the customer. So we're just providing information to community action, the customer's doing the application, and then community action pays on behalf of the customer. We receive that money directly from them and apply it to their bill.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have other questions or comments from commissioners?
This is Jim Doan. I can only echo Bernice's and other commissioners' comments about how cool this is for TVWD to do this stuff. And I'm sure it's, I do food cupboard at our church, and I see, probably 50% more people now than I saw 2 months ago. So stuff like this is really helping. I'm not sure if there's any way at all to deal with people who live in apartments that would be equitable. But, you know, first time out the door, you can't be perfect. And I think this is just great. Anyway, thank you very much for all the energy that's put into this and all the clear thinking on how to make it work, and the staff time in working with people.
So Commissioner Doan, I do have some good news about the apartment complex that I can share with you. And that is the Community Action Group also administers a rent assistance program. And so to the extent that there is a charge from the utilities are included in the rent, or if the landlord includes the utilities on a bill to the tenant, that is able to be helped through the rental assistance program if the customer qualifies. So it's not perfect. It doesn't apply to everybody, but most people, either their utilities are included in the rent or the landlord provides a separate bill for the utilities with the rent, and the customer get assistance there. Community Action is working to find a way to help a very limited number of customers who actually are billed by a third party. And that's an area that work still needs to be done. But in any event, there is quite a bit of assistance out there for our customers who are in rental housing, multifamily housing.
Thank you very much. I will pass that on to the customers that show up on the first and fourth Wednesday night.
That would be great. Let them know to get a hold of Community Action, and anybody who's having difficulties in paying their water or sewer bills, even if they're not within the Tualatin Valley Water Service area, If they're a citizen of Washington County, live in Washington County, and pay a bill in Washington County, community action is available to assist them through this program. One thing that's important to realize, though, is the door is closing on this, that the assistance ends on December 30th by law, by federal law. And to make this work, community action is going to be taking applications through the middle of December. So customers who need assistance, I would urge them to take action now, get a hold of community action, fill out the application, submit it to them for assistance, and get some help with your bills. The other thing that's unique about this program is most of these kinds of programs assist households that are at 60% of the median household income adjusted for family size. This one goes up to 80% of the median household income. So there are some folks that might not otherwise qualify for programs like this that will qualify for assistance under the CARES Act. So I'd encourage people to reach out to community action. You can go to our website and find a link to that information. You can call our customer service reps to get assistance as well. So just throw it out there for a little bit of a sales pitch.
Great. Thank you very much for understanding the level of detail, because I think lots of our people are in the 60% bracket because that's how they qualify for food. But I'm sure there's people in the never land. We don't check very carefully. Shouldn't say that probably, but there's probably people who would qualify for this that they wouldn't think they would. But anyway, thank you very much for the detailed answer.
Yeah, great information, everybody. I see we have a little chat from Jim Duggan saying that it's too bad we can't do a holiday greeting this year. Yeah, it would be a little bit weird, wouldn't it? Although, you know, if Richard Burke was still with us, I'm sure that he would suggest it would be just that much more interesting of a greeting if we all did it in our pink furry slippers. You know? All right. There being no further business, unless somebody's got something else they need to do for the good of the order. In that case, this meeting is adjourned, and good evening, everybody. Miss you all.
Yeah,
See you.
exactly.
Bye. Have a great Thanksgiving, even
Yeah,
though
happy Thanksgiving.
you won't have a huge
Yeah.
house full of people.
Oh, Tom, where are you really?